Welcome to Cultivated Live for Monday, March 18th, 2024. I'm Jay Rosenthal, co-founder of Cultivated Media and host of Cultivated Live, which is why I'm here. And since we launched Cultivated, we've been trying to be reader first, providing the cannabis industry with the most important, insightful, and useful information to our audience. And up to when we started this live stream, it was through our daily newsletter, which we hope you will still subscribe to. But you can also catch this program every morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, on LinkedIn and YouTube. So welcome everybody. And we have a great guest for you today, which is what we do. We run through the news of the day, then we get to a great guest. Today we have Dustin Hughes from Rad Source. We'll bring him on after the news. But before we do that, let's get to the news. Here's what's happening. Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday hosted a roundtable at the White House on cannabis reform. The event was billed as a way to further understand the injustices of the federal government's prohibitive stance on cannabis, and perhaps a way to signal to voters that the administration is working on it. Recall that this comes just over a week after the State of the Union, where the president, Joe Biden, mentioned cannabis reform for 12 seconds during his State of the Union. He also mentioned it on the campaign trail, and this roundtable capped off a very eventful week. Now, the vice president specifically called on the Drug Enforcement Administration to reschedule cannabis. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear was there, rapper Fat Joe was there, and other people who have received federal pardons were among the attendees in the Roosevelt Room at the White House. Now, she called cannabis status as a Schedule I drug, the same classification as heroin, as absurd. That's a quote, absurd. She also said, "I'm sure the DEA is working as quickly as possible and will continue to do so, and we look forward to the product of their work." Well, Vice President Harris, so do we. And the roundtable, as I mentioned, is another sign that the White House is taking cannabis reform maybe more seriously than they have in the past, again, following up on the State of the Union earlier in the month. She told participants in the meeting, and this was quoted afterwards, that we need to legalize marijuana. That was according to a report in Marijuana Moment. So another very busy week last week in cannabis. To New York, which is also always in the news. Jenny Argy, a licensed cannabis producer, is suing the State of New York Office of Cannabis Management, the OCM, in Albany's Supreme Court after the state pulled her products off store shelves for what she says is retaliatory behavior on the state's part, and that is according to New York Cannabis Insider. Now, Argy's claims were at the center of a bombshell story accusing the OCM of intimidation and retaliatory behavior published by New York Cannabis Insider last week. She says that after she spoke out about illicit products entering New York's market and leaked conversations with OCM officials to the press, her products were recalled by the state and her facility was shut down after a surprise inspection. Now, more from New York. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has ordered a review of the state's cannabis licensing process, maybe as a fallout of the New York Cannabis Insider story. And that process is set to begin today, according to a long story in the New York Times. Now, from New York to Canada, Canadian Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland was warned last year about systemic financial distress among the country's cannabis producers, that according to a story in MJ Biz Daily. Some other news. Connecticut's getting its second cannabis testing lab, according to Connecticut Insider. And investor Doug Cass says he's going long on cannabis stocks after he posted on X that sources, this is very loose, sources tell him that the DEA will soon reschedule cannabis to Schedule III. So those are unnamed sources, unnamed locations, but he's got a lot of capital moving in to cannabis markets. So interesting there to see if he has any insider information that we don't have. We shall see. Well, it seems like the vice president may not have that insider information either. At this point, we're going to bring on Dustin Hughes. Give me 1 second. Hey, Dustin, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Jay. I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good. You are from Rad Source. We're going to dive into exactly what that is. I did a little research, but based on beard length, you're going to know more about it than I am. It's sort of like a before and after picture, I think.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's like my aspirational beard length and color too. So I'm getting there on the color, maybe not the length. Give us a bit of a rundown about Rad Source is and its applications for cannabis, and maybe a little bit about sort of how you came to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I'll start with how I came to it. I've been in cannabis for a long time now. Grew up in New England, moved out to Colorado in my 20s, and found out some of the most amazing weed I've ever seen there. Had a love for it forever. Started working a lot of mechanical background stuff that got me into helping guys build and grow gardens. Did that for a long time out in Colorado. Moved to Georgia, and by pure luck, came across Rad Source. I saw it advertised and called them up. They were looking for an account executive, and they brought me in for an interview, and kind of took off from there. But they are an amazing company, amazing background. But what we're doing for the cannabis industry is really cool. Allowing these guys to do what they do, grow great weed, put a great product out for the consumer. So we're using photonic light. So the technology is called photonic decontamination. We're able to bring microbials down to an undetectable level and not affect the product.
That's amazing. And I want to sort of dive into that, but I was doing a little bit of research on Rad Source's website, and the cannabis there's other applications in other sectors as well, but the cannabis technology. Do I have this right? It's RS-420. I
Yeah,
kind of like that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And
That's
so for those either new to the industry or me because I'm a simpleton. So cannabis gets thrown, process use facility, has to pass strict criteria to hit the market and regulated markets. And your technology, it goes in there. No, I've already screwed it up, but you're going to tell me the exact technology. It does its thing and it comes out. Microbials are dead. Mildew, all those things get, I don't know, photonic out of it.
Yeah, essentially what we're doing is we're breaking up the DNA. We're using photons to break up DNA, just created by high energy generators. So, there's a lot of misconception of, is this radioactive? There's no cesium or cobalt. We actually got into blood irradiation because we are a replacement for cesium radiators. Yeah, but you're right. It's goes into the process. Last step in the process, you're taking product, whether it's in large turkey bags or whether it's in the mylar bags you send out to dispensary, put them in the equipment, and you process right through those bags.
Oh, really?
So yeah, what's amazing about that is cross contamination. You're eliminating that because that's the biggest problem here. We're fighting yeast and mold, and we're fighting aspergillus, and these guys are dealing with one spore presence of aspergillus as a fail. So very important that it's the last step. Run it through the machine and off to testing or off to your dispensaries. And it actually is giving the product a shelf life. So yeah,
That's
really
amazing.
amazing.
And obviously, you're in Georgia, not a massive market, but I imagine this is in use in other places, correct? And how are customers finding it versus other technologies that they could use? Is it easier, safer? The product lives longer, like all those things that would be desirable for a grower or cultivator.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the two main things that I tell people is we're going to get you to an undetectable level, and we're going to have no effect on terpenes, potency, or moisture. And that's music to people's ears because, most places the average is about 10,000 CFU threshold. You may be able to get to that today, but tomorrow you're 10, now 20. Colorado has secret shopper programs, so they go in a second time and pull product. So it's really important that you get you down to that undetectable and have no effect on the product.
And
Any of these, and the other technologies out there are more of a surface treatment. We're able to penetrate, and again, having no effect is huge because everybody wants the product to be fantastic in the end.
when you say surface treatment, that means sort of the other technologies, like it goes into whatever machine it goes into as the last step, and that takes care of it to get to the lab to pass. But once it hits shelves, those things are the fix is temporary. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, if you can't get it down that far, and you're using something that is a surface treatment, whether the ozone or reactive oxygen, some of these other technologies out there, they're not able to penetrate. And as we know, as cannabis users, we're looking at buds. You open up buds, and you see, presence of mold. Which, if you're seeing it, you already have pretty high microbial levels. And we by no means encourage, dirty gardens. But when you're fighting microbials that are in a dirty world that we are surrounded by, they're everywhere. It's always going to be an issue. You're always going to be fighting it. So yeah, to get to the center of that product. Same with pre-rolls. We can treat pre-rolls. We can do bubble hash, keef, trim, shake, all those things. We're able to process in the equipment and get
So
it
wait,
down to that.
so if I am a pre-roll producer, let's say, and I'm producing tens of thousands a day, but I even have it in the package, a 5 pack of little teeny pre-rolls, like I could actually put those packs in, go through the process, and it takes care of them almost as a finished product.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the one thing that people don't realize about pre-rolls is a lot of times product is great, flour is great, but then you go into the process. So now you have the paper, you have the rolling machine, the packaging, and all those are steps that allow for um, contamination. So it's really important that it's that last step in the operation. And yep, you can put your pre-rolls in there, put your flour in there in the bags, process, and again have a bit of a shelf life.
How long does it take? Like if I bring in you think you call it a turkey bag, like a gigantic bag of flour, right? The wholesale for wholesale, whatever, and I get it in the machine. Like how long does that process take from me giving you or me putting the bag in my RS 420 and then taking out? Is that like 17 hours or is it like much faster than that?
Yeah, no, it's faster than that, and it's always going to be based on the bioburden, but an average time in our largest unit, which is our 50-pound unit, runs about 7 to 8 hours.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so we've have a lot of people that use this technology in their own facility, and then we really created a thing called toll processing. And out in Colorado, is probably one of our number one states where a lot of these guys own the equipment and they're bringing in other product. They're bringing everybody because it's not the cheapest equipment in the industry.
Right.
It's expensive, and but these toll processors allow these little guys to still get product processed and get it out to the market.
Right. If you're only using it 8 hours a couple times a week, there's lots of 8 hour chunks that you can you can find other people to use, especially in places like Colorado, right, where
Yeah,
there are lots of product to test. It's
yeah.
I mean, I know I'm a simpleton, and you know much more about this, but it seems to me like a solution that is certainly hitting its market sweet spot. And I guess that's a question for you, sort of like when you go to new markets. The big benefit of opening a legal market, at least from my perspective, is that the product is tested and doesn't have these microbes, right? Have the things you don't want in it. Um, Talk a little bit about sort of that when you go to new markets. Are they like they're not kids in a candy store, but they need to get all these equipment to all the processors like is it like, oh, this is the exact thing we need? Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a great question. I actually just switched territories from the Midwest and into the Northeast, and
Home turf.
yeah, exactly, no doubt. But most of the operations that are new starting up there, they know that this is a needed part of the operation. It just become it's it's as important to the power of the building to these guys. The ones that don't quite recognize that, unfortunately, they go through a lot of pain because they're chasing something that's completely invisible.
Right.
And they keep
Right.
thinking, hey, we're going to correct it with, whether it's a nutrients or the lighting or the HVAC or, and it's just a never ending battle. So yeah, I mean, everybody's a little bit different. The ones that are, especially our MSOs, they know hey, we've got to have this. If we're building a new operation, we absolutely, put in a decon type process.
Right.
Yeah.
It is it's it's part of the process that I think certainly people who are just having the conversation on legalization, they don't even think about all the steps along the way that differentiate legal versus sort of legacy. And I think that even talking about sort of the process of decontamination and the testing process, and I think up front in the story, Connecticut's just about to get their second testing lab. Like the rigor with which the industry operates, I think, is outside of the view of many regulators and elected officials, and it's never part of the conversation in DC. But I think it actually should be front and center because everything you said when you sort of described what Rad Source does is the differentiator. Creating a safe product for patients and for consumers.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And if you look back at what Radsport's been around for 25 years, blood irradiation is one of our biggest. We have an insect division where we eliminate pesticides. Where it really amazing stuff. So, and then about 6 years ago, they went into the cannabis end of it. But it's with the rules and regs that these guys deal with, and having a growing background, I know you have it as well. You know all these things, the difficulties of the business, not just to grow a great product and get it out there, but you've got the worst human element in there that's making bringing in microbials and making uh, difficult to grow a great product and not have contamination issues. And we work a lot with the labs. It's a great solution because it allows, these labs get a lot of kickback. People come in and say, you failed, or, your THC levels. So they get a lot of lab shopping. With where our technology, these labs can say, hey, you guys are having to struggle with microbials. Here's a great solution for you. And it allows them to, get back on track, correct those problems, and get those great products out there.
Yeah. Dustin, I want to thank you for joining us to give, like, let's call it Rad Source 101. We'll get back for Rad Source 201 and 301. We'll get people to be PhDs in Rad Source over time. But I really appreciate the intro and meeting you. And I always appreciate, well, people with beards, people from New England, people from New England in cannabis, people from New England in cannabis that spend time in Georgia. Because as we talked about when we came on and met each other, I spent a great 4 years at the
Yeah.
intersection of education and cannabis at Emory University. Don't tell them, but I appreciate it. Thank you for coming by today, and we'll connect with you as we go.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
You got to stick around just for a sec while I close the show. That's it for today's Cultivated Live. We encourage you to subscribe to our daily newsletter at cultivated.news. Follow us on LinkedIn. Smash the subscribe button on YouTube. The kids make me say that. We'll be back here again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on LinkedIn and YouTube with Brad Spearson, also an Emory guy, the founder and CEO of Grown In, where we'll talk about the intersection of cannabis and politics, of which there is a lot to talk about. Everybody have a great Monday. Buy cannabis at your local dispensary where it's legal, I guess. And hopefully it's been treated with Rad Source so you get the safest, best product for patients and consumers. So, Dustin, thanks, everybody. We'll connect with you tomorrow.
Hey, thanks. Take care, Jay. Have a great day.
You too.